Nadler.
Here.
Engel, absent. Thompson.
Here.
Here.
Is Robin online though,
He was on.
Ryan?
Oh, he was online.
Did she drop in the meeting? All right, well, let's rise for the pledge. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Notice of the meeting, Ryan, has the meeting been properly noticed?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Then we will take an approval of the agenda.
I will make the motion.
Second.
The agenda.
Motion by Jess, second by Randall. Is that what I heard?
Yes.
Okay, to approve the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Comments?
There isn't any.
No public comments? All right. No public comments. Okay, then we'll move on to information and study. So our first item is board goals.
Yeah, so we had collected the data on where we saw each of our priorities being. And so I felt like we should share that information out with the larger community as we've been going through this process publicly. And so just to give a sharing from the information that we had, we did have from the priorities, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the board / admin team were all putting their top priority being financial stability. And then we had 3 that had identified recruitment and retention. And then we had some singletons in fidelity to the PLC process, school-wide systems of support, and communication and marketing strategies. So in this process, we just needed to verbalize what did we see as being our top choice. And now what we're doing is we're going through a process of narrowing those down. So we'll vote over all of the top 10 and get down to a narrowing of 2 to 3 priorities. Once we have those 2 or 3 identified, we will then go through a similar process where we'll start to look at, of this main category, what are the things that go into that we want to start setting up some goals and some action plans around. So it's a process we're going to go through right now. We can do a few of these in a virtual format where we can just vote and then share out the results and keep moving forward. So the board and the admin team, you guys will be going through the process of voting on where do you see your top priorities of this new top 10. And then we'll share that information out at the July board meeting and have a larger discussion as we'll have. At that point, hopefully the whole board is able to make it. And then the admin team will all be present as well. So we can start analyzing that data a little bit deeper. So questions that you guys have with any of that?
That's what we got today.
That's what you have today for me on that one. It's just to go public with the lens of where did our top votes go? That doesn't mean that that is the top one, but we had to individually identify where did we see things.
A question about the process, I think.
Mhm.
Because you talked about we'll select our top goals and then we'll look at what fits under them.
Yep.
And as I looked at some of the ones on the list, some things seemed rather obvious that they would fit under other higher level goals, some not so much. And so I have some concern as we go through the process, if we're not thinking about what fits under each category, we may end up with category and we may end up with some things that we know we have to work, but we can't put them on the list. They don't fit.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So.
Anybody else want to comment or thoughts that you guys have on that?
I think nothing prevents us from taking some of them and putting them under those higher level categories that didn't make it to the top 2 or 3. Like I'm thinking, morale and culture could easily fit under staff recruitment and retention as a sub goal.
Right.
Whereas it might not have been one of the top 2 or 3, even though it's really important, but we can kind of mush them
Well,
not mush them, but like it can be a way of retaining and recruiting staff is to work on staff morale for just an example.
but yeah, my concern is the things that don't go the other way,
Oh,
like you could have financial stability as a top goal, but recruiting, retaining staff doesn't fit under financial stability. Now,
you
now
don't
that
have
happens
it,
to be
it's a little
one that's
harder.
probably gonna be at the
Right.
top,
right.
but those are the kind of things that's what I'm concerned about within the process, that we kind of need to be thinking about what might fit under the higher level goals as we make those choices.
Yeah, but I think going back to when Jamie was here, we also know that if we make too many goals, we'll have too many things to work on and we won't be able to achieve them. So I think you're right. And I think in the community conversations especially, there were a lot of very similarly themed items that stayed on the board per se. You know, a lot of communication type things, a lot of things that I think become part of one category. We just can't lose some of the detail in those pieces. And when we were merging in that process, I felt like we were trying to be really respectful of that, of not losing an idea that was part of one of those, but they do ultimately go together. So I think we just need to make sure we keep some of the details.
Yeah.
That's important.
What's your concern, Randall?
My biggest concern is that we will end up with a top three that doesn't include anything about the community. We have to do something about that. And so, cause recruiting and retaining staff, financial stability, neither one of those really have. Community doesn't really fit under those, so as I looked at them, there were other things that I had some concern about, but
At some,
I just think we need to be thinking about it.
yeah, but at some point, those community pieces and our pieces meld. And when they do, the community pieces were very strongly about the engagement with the community in a variety of different ways. So I would think that that'll rise to the top in that group. And then somehow they have to come together.
The other lens that I'll add to this is just going off that example in itself. Any one of the, pick a category, as we talk stakeholders, that is a community. So financial stability, we better figure out how we can engage the community in that conversation. Otherwise, we're not going to be on the same page moving forward. So as Jamie has reassured me, trust the process. And as we dig through it, we're gonna have to analyze where are we at and what makes sense. And then we will still have this area of, we're gonna have curriculum work that still needs to be done. We're still gonna have policy. We're still gonna have buildings and grounds. And so it is one of those that some of these things are still going to be a part of the process, but we have to narrow our focus. Otherwise, everything's important. And then nothing really gets done in the end because we're spending so much time on these bigger items. So we've gotta narrow our priorities. Other thoughts or other discussions that you guys would like to have?
I mean, I think it's what you're suggesting is a good point for me. Those first two, the financial stability and the retention of staff, are same page. And so
Right.
the retention of staff could be a subset under financial stability, and so we can, as we kind of parse this thing out in the middle of July. Is that what's gonna happen in the middle of July?
That'll be the next piece. You guys will vote and we'll get a top 2 or 3, and then we'll see, okay, how does this break down where we wanna focus our energy? And then there is still this other group, the community group that's working as well. And so can we come up with some commonalities that'll help shape this work together?
So no disrespect to your point, but to me, when I looked at those first two, they were part of the same goal, sense for me.
I kind of felt the same way, can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
Right.
And the tricky part is we don't have full control of our financial stability, which is the tricky part.
Right, I know.
Little tricky, yes.
Anything else on that topic? Okay. Then we're gonna move on to the 4K ELP sectioning, staffing, and policy updates.
So I really wanted to bring this back up as we've met with the members of the ELP 4K team. And this is a thing that we believe, given the data that we have and conversations we've had with different parents, that there was this level of concern about not fully understanding that this policy has been rewritten. And that now with this rewritten policy, having some level of guarantee that, yes, the parents do have a choice. And so we wanted to re-highlight this and so get families to understand that, yes, the policy changed, that we will be allowing families to have a choice in those 4K ELP years if they don't want to go on to the next grade level. We're still going to have a meeting. We still want to analyze the data, but the families are going to get the ultimate decision in that. And we updated that policy in, I believe, January. And so we've been reaching out to families, making sure they were aware of that. We've gotten some families to register. And so looking at the numbers, we absolutely want to stay at 4. And so we would like to just inform, like, we're going to stay with the sections of the 4. That means we will need to hire a second grade teacher is where my understanding is at this point. So wanting the families in our community to know the policy changed. Our practice will reflect the policy and we've put out flyers. I think we've posted it on social media. Anywhere else that flyers have gone that you guys are, I know you guys were a part of working on that.
I made a flyer, but I don't know where to find that.
I think I heard it went out on social media, but will you double check that one?
I don't. Maybe.
What was in the flyer? Like, what was the high points of it?
You can call and pre-register.
Okay.
Don't wait till last minute. Please register now.
The earlier.
Yes,
the
correct.
better.
Just to, so I'm not confused. Are numbers higher than we thought they would be because of the change of policy allowing parents more say in having their kids repeat?
Families were refraining from registering because they wanted to have their child repeat if they had that option. And so they were exploring other options or just not registering at this point. And so we've talked to a couple of them and they've gotten to the point that, yes, they're going to register now. They wanted to get a written guarantee from me, which I said, there is a policy, but I will send you that written guarantee because it aligns with what our district vision is.
Because in reality, while we've crafted some different language, the reality was that a year ago, these parents would have had the same privilege of saying, I want my kid to repeat.
The policy did not align with that. No.
Okay.
So it came to my plate and then I had to review, was there an infraction? Which that's not the direction we wanted to go because unfortunately the data that was collected didn't support that fully.
Well, it could have been interpreted that way. It just wasn't worded clearly enough that it was distinct.
I mean, if a parent was insistent, my impression was you guys would say in the end, okay, we'll do it because we don't want to lose you.
That's how we.
Or you were saying you were booting them into first grade, no matter, or kindergarten, no matter what.
There was a meeting and it was held and documentation was reviewed. But more often than not, the kiddo was encouraged to go on.
Right.
Um,
And that, isn't that
To
kind of
show-
still the case though, if the test scores indicate that and the examination of their kind of social interaction indicated that, wouldn't you encourage them to go on still?
right, but we want to look at the whole child.
Right,
And I
right.
think that's the big piece that we're really, is we're analyzing not just the outcomes on the reading scores or the
Yeah.
math scores,
Yeah.
but more so we're looking at the social.
Yeah.
Piece.
So what you're saying is that the parents feel more reassured by this, that should there be a need to do the program in a repeat cycle, no problem, or
Now-
less problem.
Now they do.
Okay,
And I was saying, so that was why we wanted to bring this up as an agenda item, because our hopes is to get this out, posted again on the Chronicle. We've reached out to families we knew, and the ones I've talked to have all said, yes, I plan on registering now. Which to us was enough to say, okay, we need to make this pivot because we know come August, we're going to get more families. It's just a matter of how many. So we're right at that cusp. And if we wait, we're not gonna find a good second grade teacher.
Okay.
Let's let this team plan moving forward where the ELP where it's currently at. And then we can now plan moving forward with the other grades.
Okay.
So there is this piece too. We wanna eliminate that doubt that families were having about some past practice. That has changed and we are fully moving forward with this new procedure.
And we did post information on our Facebook page on June 23rd that has a pre-register now 4K ELP program. So we did post that recently.
Yep.
So
Does anybody happen to remember the policy number that was? I feel like doing some reading and I.
We just passed it, I think, March, final one.
yeah, I think it was March too.
Or you have policies. I think that's there.
Because it was. What was the name of that?
Retention.
Retention.
345.4.
3, 4, 5.
345.4, promotion and retention of students.
So just for my own benefit, because probably everybody else understands it perfectly clearly. We're kind of addressing those parents who are really kind of caught. Am I gonna keep my kid home for another year before I start in school versus letting them try it out? And if it doesn't work out, no harm, no foul, because they're still gonna be able to go back and retake it. Am I capturing it?
That's there. Yeah.
All right. I didn't realize from the discussions we had, several months ago, that there was such a push to say, okay, you had your attempt, now you're moving on to K. I thought that when push came to shove, the parents' desires were always going to be respected.
That was the discussion. We wanted to get the policy to clearly
Okay.
spell out for us. So that's where we were moving.
Okay, and I know that the presentation to parents in a timely way, April, early May, whenever, is gonna be very holistic. This is the picture that we see. This is our recommendation. But should they now see that recommendation as something they don't agree with, no pressure on them to follow through on the recommendation. All right.
So, and we had the conversation about when they're doing their final parent-teacher conferences, they're gonna have a little more in-depth conversation
Right.
about what that looks like, so parents are a little
Okay.
more prepared for the end of the year versus getting kind of, in their words, maybe surprised with that at the end of the year.
Yeah, 'cause I fully understand it's a critical decision for all parents. Particularly if their child is born in, say, the second half of the year. That they are debating, is my kid mature enough, particularly for males, probably more than females? Is my kid mature enough, et cetera, to start this thing? Because once this thing starts, there's no holding back. Now we're basically saying we can put the brakes on more readily than before. Throughout all those discussions, which I was an active participant in, I somehow missed out on the reality that it wasn't that hard for parents to pull their kid back. But you're saying it was more challenging than it needed to be.
Past few years has been very challenging.
Okay, all right.
But years before that, we had probably 2 or 3 every year that would.
Okay,
And
right.
if you ask them now, they're happy to be the older
Okay.
kids in the class instead of registered kids, so.
So the bump we're anticipating with the 4-year-old program is not exclusively the kids who might come into the district later in the summer. It's more of these parents who are vacillating.
Yeah, we knew we had, so we met a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago and talked with the team. We generated a list of names of, okay, if we can contact these families and find out, are they truly on the fence and give them a level of assurance, like the policies change, here's our practice, what would you do? We've got enough now to say is they've verbalized they want to register, okay, we need to move that.
Okay, all right.
And then the other part was, let's make sure we put this as an agenda item so families can hear it.
Yeah.
We can show it to them that this has changed and we want you to register your child because we do firmly believe this is the place where you're going to get the best quality education starting off. And you do have the guaranteed choice, even if the data doesn't support it. Your parental opinion, if you want to retain your child, you will have that right to do so.
Yeah, in reality, and probably most families would agree, that the best way to find out whether your child is ready or not is actually to go forward and try it out. Rather than stay home and wonder, and maybe go to some other part-time daycare within the community or something like that. So, yeah, now, just out of curiosity, we do 4 days of full day, right? Are the other surrounding districts in that same schedule?
Not many.
How many are,
Barnville is a half day.
which one is,
Barnville,
Barnwell just 5 days a week, or
I'm sorry,
is it 5 days a week but halftime?
4 days a week.
4 halves, okay.
And our point is half day,
What is Mineral Point at?
half day.
They're still at half, okay. And,
Benamor is full day, but only 2 days a week.
okay, how about River Valley? Anybody know River Valley?
Look at Platteville, what was Platteville?
Flatbush full day.
Full days, yeah.
I think 4.
Okay,
IG is like, IG does half day education and then stay and play
it
afternoon.
becomes more like a daycare for the second.
And Mount Horeb is just mornings. 4
What is
days a
it?
week. Mount Horeb,
Is what,
4 days, half day.
4, they're still at half too. So I know when we made the jump into the full day model, we had some of these same discussions. And it was, you know, a big leap in many respects, but it certainly is a great way for parents to discover if their kid is ready. And, you know, we're still hoping that parents will choose our district because of that, the value of that full-time 4 days.
Districts in the state are slowly going to
Yeah.
full day, like Sparta just did full day last year.
Okay.
Who else did? Sparta and I can't think now. There was another district we talked to who had just done it.
Spring Green is doing 5 days full day starting.
Okay.
Coming.
Oh, Belmont just did it too for the first time.
They're gonna do 5 full,
Days.
5?
Yeah, in River Valley.
Wow.
okay, starting this fall?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any reason for us, or are all the reasons for only doing 4 instead of 5 still valid reasons for you guys?
I think so.
Okay, right,
It's a lot. That is a lot.
Yeah, no, I know.
That's Many days in a row.
yeah,
And a lot of parents are so thankful for that day.
Yes.
It can maybe be a day with grandma and grandpa, or it could be a day at home.
Mhm.
It gives them longer weekends to recover.
Mhm.
Parents are very, very positive when they.
Okay, is it Monday? Yeah, so that makes it, it's an additional way for parents to evaluate whether this is really working or not. Because they're home for that extra day and they can see whether the kid is actually eager to go back, reluctant to go back, et cetera, et cetera.
On the Mondays, do we have Dodger care for those kids that are enrolled in ELP? We do not.
Except unless it's a PD Monday.
Only on the PD Mondays. Okay, that's. I
But
knew
as
it
a
was
staff, we
somewhere.
also appreciate having that Monday, because that's when we have our IEP meetings, that's when we have our collab meetings, that's when we
Yeah,
plan, that's when we, so.
yeah, no, there were many great reasons to have that day where without students. I just wanted to check to see if it was still that valuable to you. Yeah.
So if you guys can help me out too and kind of wrap it around, because the ELP model is something that's I'm not that familiar with. So when you walk in and you have students, what does your day look like? You get a prep period, how does lunch work out? How does all that stuff work?
So, as a staff, we have a half an hour lunch Tuesday through Friday. That's the only time we're away from the kids.
30 minutes.
Yes, cause all of our other minutes are on Monday. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, which we've worked with it and we're okay with that. As long as we have a Monday. When we don't have a Monday, it's very hard. Otherwise, we do our own duties outside. We take our kids outside. We do most of lunch duty with our kiddos. We serve them lunch. We do that.
Wow, and so you're
So-
forming all these relationships and the rapport with the kids.
All day long,
connection with
yes,
the family.
correct.
Wow. Okay.
At the beginning of the years, usually don't have a lunch. Usually because their comfort level is very, very low.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of hand holding, it's sitting in the specials with them, it's eating lunch beside them.
Because they want your familiar face with them
right.
until they get full of confidence.
And they do go to a special, that's, so but their special is only 20 minutes, so. Yeah, so they get a special every day. They get buy-in, they get music, they get art, library, and library. So they do have all those. which they did not have as a halftime program. But then once we went to full-time, then they did get to have those specials, so.
Okay.
Do you do recess in, with all the groups together?
Yes.
Okay, so you can, if you need to go to the bathroom, you can probably pull it off.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you. I didn't know how to phrase that question.
Straight out, that's how you ask that.
They enter the doors at 7:40, the majority of them. And then we put the last few on the bus up 3:22-ish. Their day is very long.
Yeah, no, this,
Wow.
We have our ELA minutes, we have our math minutes, like, we
Yeah.
have social emotional learning, we have all those things, all part of our day.
Mhm.
That's there. They also have an hour of rest time
Okay.
where we do.
At what point-
Quiet time.
maybe I'm wrong, the, do the ELA and the math programs trickle down?
Yes.
To your level? At what point do you kick in with those? Is there like a 9 week of just kind of just readiness before they're ready to do that?
Yeah, pretty quick,
Oh, okay,
yeah, getting pretty quick.
Probably within the first month.
okay,
You have to establish the routines of walking in the hall, using the bathroom, those simple things.
Yeah,
that truly, many of them have never experienced.
mhm, okay,
The self-help skills of when I go into the bathroom, what's appropriate. I have to wash my hands, I have to pull up my pants, all of those things that seem very small, it take a long time to learn.
Mhm.
Safety. What does safety look like at school? What does it look like
Yeah,
outside of
yeah.
recess? Carrying a tray through the lunch line is a very big process because it's complete independence and they're doing it all alone.
And they can do it, it's pretty cool, to actually see.
Using utensils when they eat.
Yeah.
So many kiddos come from homes that they're just allowed, to eat without. It's more simple. It's easier maybe to get a piece of fruit into your mouth with your fingers versus a fork.
Mhm.
So those are skills that we work on, and truly, if you watch a kiddo that comes into us September 1, and then you see them at the end of the year, it is truly amazing, and sometimes brings us, like, whoa.
Yeah.
well, your efforts are very, very appreciated, so just be aware of that.
So, anything else for 4K ELP?
Wanted to build a greater awareness and commend the team for the work that they went into doing this and keep up the work educating the families about what things are in place so that we can now keep moving forward with the more of you working at the program. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming in too.
Okay, then we're gonna move on to 2-3, which is administrative team roles and responsibilities.
So part of the admin responsibilities for this upcoming year, we need to make sure we have titles in place for the different positions that we have to have in place from a requirement for DPI, plus policy, as well as the reimbursement. So there's title funds that are out there that the admin team, and throughout the district that we can, use to offset dollars in the district. The challenge is we're reminded with the auditors, you have to make sure that the titles are approved through DPI. And one of the things that we found is that some of those titles don't get approved, and then if you don't get them recoded, you can't claim those funds. And so that was an area that we really want to make sure that we're claiming all the funds that we possibly can, because we don't know if at some year they might pull those funds from us. And so we want to be very mindful of that. We also have positions that we know as when we're going down an administrator, there's responsibilities that this person was taking on that we now have to figure out, okay, how are we going to cover that? And so I do have a plan at this point on where some of those positions or those titles. And so I just wanted to kind of go over those, looking at Brian Brum would still be keeping the school safety coordinator. Still taking on the daughter care coordinator, and then we want to put on his title that he's a Title IX coordinator. He deals with the student related matters for Title IX. Erin Spatafor will still be taking on the district assessments coordinator, but as she's taking on a greater role within the psych position as well that we have repositioned. She's gonna need some support, and so we're looking at some internal supports within buildings, but that she would be the head of our assessments. She's also helping make sure that all of our grants and titles are accurately coded. And so we need to make sure for the grants and the titles that we're in compliance with both our audit and DPI. And so she's taking on that title. Heather Zizos will be taking on the 4K ELP through 8th grade instruction coordinations. She will be the head of both instructional coaches that we have as well as interventions, but she'll be taking on the primary lead there. She will also be taking on Title IX coordination, and she'll be doing it for the staff related items. So underneath Title IX, per our policy, we have 2 people that do the investigative work. Aaron Spatafor takes a role in decision making, and then I take a role as appeals. Those titles have already existed, so we don't need to change those on our parts. But Heather is also going to take a greater role as we're going to have new administrators in positions next year, taking on some mentoring with them. We will have a new person working in the district if we approve this here coming up, but they're really taking on the summer learning coordination. And so that would be Jason Knoll.
So with the title of assistant associate principal at the elementary no longer exists.
That one would still exist, yes, but we will be looking at a hire for that position.
And since a bunch of those other titles that Brian had are either he's keeping or are being dispersed elsewhere, would that person have other jobs besides?
So they will have other jobs, and we are looking for a transition out. However, Brian knows Dodger Care, and so we'd like him to stick with that for another year.
Okay.
We're looking to bring in an assistant for that will offset some of the dollars.
Okay.
But it is one we want, because it's a handling of financials, we absolutely want to have, and this does come out of Fund 80. Which our Fund 80 account we're doing well in that one. It is an area that we want to make sure that we have a level of oversight. And so I could see this assistant principal taking on a partial role there.
Okay.
But Brian knowing it inside and out at this point, we don't want to see that go backwards. That's really been a highlight for our district. And so we want to make a smooth transition in that program.
Okay.
But obviously Brian's not gonna physically be in that building, and I know he does a lot of coverage. So we would be looking at
We're
the
gonna look-
assistant
Yeah, we're
to
gonna look
provide that coverage.
And then some internal financial support, but for Brian to oversee it and just to make sure that everything is running smoothly. So we'll offset dollars, but we'll be looking for an assistant. We just haven't posted that yet. We wanted to do one step at a time.
Okay.
We do believe there's roles that could be picked up in the main office of that building that could help support. But we do need to find somebody that can take on the, hey, I can't come in today, or we're needing support. We need somebody to be the heavy hand in that program, because that keeps Kelly as being the front facing, loving, caring, and not having to deal with, you're not paying your bill. We need to address the hard conversations. It's gone better that way when you have differences in roles.
Well, with this, would you see it as a lead teacher versus an administrator?
It could be a lead teacher, or it could, I mean, it could be the assistant down at the elementary school that takes us on. We don't have that
Okay.
planned out yet, because we
Okay.
need to see where there's a skill sets, and also, we might be able to shift some things there, but I don't have that position filled at this point.
How is it posted?
It has not been posted.
Oh,
yet.
okay.
So
Right.
if these things go forward tonight, then tomorrow, right
Okay.
away, we'll be posting positions.
Okay, I get it.
Any other questions for Ryan about the restructuring and the new titles?
For comments, Joey, because he was hired, his positions will not change, so he'll still be high school principal, middle school, high school activities and community events director. And then I will still be district administrator, so
And community events director, is that a new name for AD?
it's a new name because part of what the community is we can offset some of his dollars because these events are community related, which allows us to bill Fund 80 for those events.
But it still encompasses the duties of
It
it.
still encompasses those duties, you know. It is also adding that communities allows us to offset dollars using Fund 80 because these events are viewed as community related events, but not all of them. And so he bills out each event to determine how much we can bill to Fund 80 for utilization of the space, utilization of his time. It's not a straight dollar for dollar and we can't count them all. But we've DPI and auditors have seen different events in the lens of this is truly a community related event. It's not, if we didn't, we wouldn't have it if we didn't have this position. And so because of the space that we offer, we have so many things now that can count as community related. And so it saves on our school district's budget.
And then Ryan, looking at the administrative contact that you have here in our notes, just curious is, you said if changes need to occur to the math coach contract, I'm just kind of curious, like what kind of changes are you foreseeing?
Just as the unforeseen as we're still building the master schedules, if for some reason things shift and where do things align, do we need to provide more economic components because of Greg's time? You know, can we get everything to piece together? And so Greg being a coach in the district, if we need to offer him an overload or if we need to do some things so that he can still provide the coaching and we can still have all of the math coverage at the high school, it's one of those like that is something that may come up later here. Right now, I'm not anticipating it. However, it is something down the road here. I just want it to be noted. We don't have all of the schedules built yet. And so when all of those pieces come together, if we're pinched in an area, we might need to provide some other added supports for the math in the district.
Yeah, I guess I have other questions too about that, just like with what an overload would look for a coach and stuff like that, when their salaries are always higher than your top level teacher, what that would look like as well. And just the goodwill or lack thereof that might create. So I'm just being aware, and I know it's a hard situation to be in, but your staff is giving you a lot right now.
Yeah, they are.
So, okay.
Yep. So as we finalize this, I'll be keeping you guys
Mhm.
informed every step of the way. It's just being aware, like right now, those are some of the areas. And there's some other positions that I'm hoping, you know, as we're trying to grow math, like what things might we need to do to try to help grow some math teachers in the district. Because that is an area that is extremely difficult to fill right now, almost impossible. And so we've got to be thinking out down the road, how are we going to staff a math department specifically at the high school level?
What is, I'm not sure what I understand about the reading coach. What does that wording actually mean?
What that means is, so with that position, because that's a new hire, I haven't fully put all of the details to the time and the commitment and the salary that goes with that. So I'm still in the negotiations with that one. So
Okay.
that one, I've still got a range of what it could be based on the workload that they have. And so that will be finalized here in the near future.
Okay. Is it going to be a pre-K-8 type of a position?
Yes, yeah, and actually we'll have some level it will have district level too, but we're gonna appropriate the amount of time.
Yeah.
And to make it realistic as well.
Okay.
So that is a district level position.
And then on the last piece there about part-time dean at DMS. Could you just explain what that means instead of a full-time behavior interventionist position?
Because of the candidate that we found and their availability in this next year, I believe we try to go with a part-time dean. Because that position is gonna be partially paid for by the charter school grant. So half of their salary will come from the charter school grant, we are looking to see is, can they start some project-based education in the social studies department? And so, Jason has done some pretty unique things with his background in the Verona School District. And so we are going to look at having him have part of his time starting to implement some of his teaching practices within the social studies department here at the high school, second semester. So with that being said, as we believe right now, okay, we can manage this for the year, to get him some experience in the classroom working on the project-based learning, as well as the planning time. Much of the grant is in its, I mean, we were going to open the school this year. It's getting him on board in the first half of the year, and then during that time, he's gonna have time that he's gonna flex in the lens of, if I have behavior related matters, I might need to put off my scene for planning time. It's not like he's just going to say, no, I'm sorry. I'm currently planning time. If we have administrative supports, he's willing to be flexible on both sides of that.
But does that does not replace hiring a middle school guidance counselor?
No, I will say, and we may need to shift that to a social worker or something else, only from the lens of, we don't have any applicants at this point. So we have to find somebody to help fill in that support of students. Just knowing if we can't find a counselor, it might be a highly trained educator, it might be a social worker. We're going to have to fill this with something.
Okay.
What at this point, we're gonna get a posting ready for a social worker here tomorrow and get that posted. The reality is it's gonna pinch elsewhere, but this will provide a unique skill set that we'll have in the district to help the other buildings as well. It's just a matter of, we still have counseling related needs that have to be done, and they need to be done by a counselor.
And does it, I know that there was talk about replacing the second school psychologist with what seemed to be a version of the behavior interventionist model. Where does that sit?
Well, right now, we're looking on the lens of, can we get by with just the half-time dean or not? And so right now, that's where we're leaning.
In a halftime, I'm sorry, you can get by with the halftime what?
The dean of students, so Jason Knoll.
Okay,
that
right,
Position.
right. But what about, so are we saying we will not be hiring the second school psychologist then?
No, we will not be hiring a second school site. We are looking at a behavior interventionist
right.
type,
Right.
but the candidates that we saw on that didn't check all of the boxes that we would have liked that to be, and so there might be some things internally we can do to help grow somebody, but it's not something right now that we're looking at as our primary response.
Ryan, just one more time, could you go through, because you've listed a lot of different things right here, the new, for, if we approve the hire of this Jason, is it Knoll or Knoll? Knoll, what are his duties again?
So he's going to be planning for the charter school as a halftime. And then he will be, second semester, he's going to have one class that he's teaching at the high school level. And then he'll be the dean of students at the middle school.
And then any support at the elementary school, because I thought too, that's where the behavioral intervention was. I thought that was kind of like.
Our plan right now is that this assistant principal down there will be able to take that on.
What position was that? You said
we have an assistant principal at the elementary school.
we do?
Not to be hired.
That's what Brian is.
Currently, Brian is that.
And if this plan goes forward, Brian moves. So that's who's filling Brian's position.
Brian had multiple duties on his plate on top of what he was doing. This position right now does not have those multiple duties on his plate. And so our hopes would be is that that person alone can take on the behavior supports at the elementary school, plus Heather.
Well, I mean, there will be a certain number of students at the middle school who need some intervention, but also be candidates for the charter school.
Correct, and that is.
So there can be some almost linkage there
Especially for the eighth graders who might go be freshmen
Yeah,
in charter
Yeah.
the following year.
and so I can understand that that's a pretty natural connection there.
The charter's still gonna be 6 through 12.
Correct.
So even at the level below, you know,
And I will tell you this is, it's not our job to hire the next people in the Seeing Forward School, so we have to get comfortable with Jason and the other board. Could hire additional staff to help with things, and we do have some ideas, but we need to let them, we're putting Jason in place. They have $200,000 that they can use on staffing. Jason and I have talked about, and the board has talked about there in the lens. We're not using all of that money in year one, we can use some for year two, and ideally, we would have enough money in both year one and year two to cover the staffing. So that buys us a little bit more time to get more students coming into this charter school. And provides a little bit more of financial stability on our lens, and so. I don't think what we're asking of the charter school is too much right now, and we've got some really good candidates out there that want to be involved. And it's possible they might steal some from the district.
Candidates who would be like an instructor within it.
They could steal some people to say, hey, we would like to hire this person, and this person wants to be part of it, which might open up some more opportunities for us because. They want to be a part of the charter school and partially with us, and we could hire another teacher
Okay.
because they're taking on some of that contract. I say it from the lenses, I can see it happening but it's not my choice. I have to, and we have to let this team function with our guidance and support, but they have to do this. We now did the number. We will be hopefully doing the number one thing is getting the right candidate to take this on. And then we support them throughout. And we've got a lot of interest on that board as well. So that board is going to be doing some shifting as well of who's on it and who's taking on different roles.
I mean, more interest in actually being on the board.
More people interested on being on that board.
Okay, right, good. Now, and at the high school, would there still be a part-time dean of students?
Yep, so Alan Seabrook will still be doing Dean of Students responsibilities, he'll teach some social studies as well. We haven't hired a social studies teacher, we're still short a teacher there, so that will be coming in the process.
So much less very kind of fixed definitions of what people are doing than in the past, I would say.
Yes, yeah, it's where are your skill sets and what are your interests? And so I hear in the people's names that are there, there's excitement and growth. So the challenge becomes, we've got to make sure we're meeting the needs of our students and then also supporting the staff.
Yeah, people.
Thank you.
I have no more questions on that. I don't know if anybody else wants.
Everybody else good?
Yep.
Laura, anything else?
Nothing I can think of right now.
All right. Okay, well then we are gonna move on and our next item of business is to move into executive session. So I'm gonna need a motion and a roll call vote to go into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.851 CF. The Board of Education may move into closed session for the purpose of discussing employee staffing and compensation related to specific positions for the 25-26 school year. Following the closed session, the board will entertain a motion to reconvene in open session. Thereafter, the board may take any further action deemed necessary.
Someone,
Motion by Mike, second by Jessica, and a roll call, please.
Oh, okay. Trader.
Yeah.
Ozark, yes. Knadler,
yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Kozinski.
Yes.
Engel, absent, complete, absent.
So are we exiting, Ryan, or are,
We'll exit so they can stand here and then the technology hopefully can stay up and run.
Okay, so you want to go to the other room?
What were the other ones? I know, I like to think.
Hey, put that chair back at the table.
You also have too much food in your mouth. That steak is chewy. You're gonna choke on it. And that's not residue. Hopefully wrong, though. Folks start digging around, fishing around for it.
Yeah, shove it back farther. Do not touch my phone.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, chew smaller bites.
Why?
Good, you can't put that much in your mouth. You gotta slow down.
Yeah, I know you did. Hey, Bradley, please stop sliding around on the chairs like that. It will break them. Go put it back at the table.
Why?
Because the chair's legs will break. Brev. Hey, did you ask to be excused from the table? Then get back in your chair. How do you ask? Okay, you're not getting any treats except for a banana right before bed. That's it. So your tummy had better be happy. All right. You may be excused. I just said it 3 times. Will you throw her food away? You may be excused.
Hey, Inger, heads up, your microphone's on.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
I think that might skip one, so.
Need a motion to return to regular session.
Okay, we are back, so I'm gonna need a motion, in a second to reconvene into open session at 7:10 PM.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mike, second by Randall. And a roll call, please.
Wait, first by
Mike
Mike and then
and
Randall.
Randall. Yep,
Schrader,
yes.
Zurich, yes. Knadler.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yeah.
Kolzinski.
Yes.
Okay, then we will move on to action items. And our first action item is resignations, retirements, and hiring of district personnel. It looks like we just have lots of hiring tonight, so that's lovely. Okay, so we have a motion to approve the hire of Michelle Lateral as a middle school CTE teacher, Maxwell McNett as the vocal music, and that is DMS and DHS,
That
correct?
is correct, yep.
That'd be the vocal?
Choir, yep.
Jason Canole as the Seeing Forward Charter School Administrator, which is paid partially by the grant, and the Dean of Students and High School Social Studies teacher, also half-time. And then to approve Brian Brum as the Dodgeville Middle School Principal.
Terry, just to clarify, Dean of Students of which building?
Dean of Students Middle School.
That is correct, yeah, middle school.
So with those couple little notes, I'll need a motion.
Make a motion.
Motion by Randall,
Second.
second by Mike, and a roll call, please.
Schrader,
Yes.
Zurich, yes. Humke. Absent, oops, I forgot him. I'll add him to all the other ones. Knadler.
Yes.
Engel, absent. Thompson.
Yes.
And Kolzinski.
Yes.
Okay. 4.2, the administrative team roles and responsibilities. We need a motion and a second to approve the following additional titles added to administrators. So Administrator Brian Brum will also be the school safety coordinator, the Dodger care coordinator, and the Title IX coordinator as on the student related side. Aaron Spatafor will be the district assessment coordinator, the grant title compliance. And these are in addition to their current titles. I'll just make that note. Heather Zizis as the 4K ELP through 8th grade instructional coordinator, the Title IX coordinator on the staff side, and the internal mentor for new administrators. And Jason Canole will also be the summer learning coordinator. So having said that, I'll need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Jeff, second by Randall, and a roll call, please.
Schrader,
Yes.
Zurich, yes. Knadler.
Yes.
Engel, absent. Humke, absent. Thompson.
Yes.
Kolzinski.
Yes.
Okay. 4.3. So I will need a motion to approve the 25-26 staff compensation. So there's not a number in there, so I'll let your motion add the number. Whoever will be doing that.
I'll make a motion that to approve a compensation package that will be salary only at 2.95, right? At 2.95 for hourly and salaried staff,
For all staff.
for all staff.
Okay,
So that the public is aware it's all inclusive.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mike to approve 2.95% salary increase for all staff at this time. So I'll need a second on that, please.
I'll second.
Second by Randall, and a roll call, please.
Schrader,
Yes.
Zurich, yes. Humke, absent. Knadler.
Yes.
Engel, absent. Thompson.
Yes.
Kolzinski.
Yes.
So as part of the staff compensation, Ryan, we're gonna ask that you continue to work toward as we wrap up our fiscal year and look toward what the state may or may not provide to us. We would like you to work with the staff. And if we have additional dollars that we may have available to us, to see how we may be able to further compensate our staff as the raise competes with our neighbors well, and we appreciate that, but we also know that we're behind. And so we need to do a little bit more for our staff if we possibly can. So we'd like you to meet with our leadership team, get together with our staff, and hopefully we'll have a few more dollars that'll be available to us after we know where the state budget and other things align.
Yeah, I absolutely can do that. And I, just as I can comment on that for others to know, that's why I like to look at the total package, because when we look at the total package, we force our staff to take a pay cut with our new insurance package. And so this 2.95 will not make up for the loss fully on that. So it is one of those, this is a token of, hey, this is where we're heading, but I am looking forward to, I can set up that meeting with them here in the next couple of weeks. Just to start to plan, like, what could this look like moving forward? And hopefully the state is going to come up with a plan that provides additional funding for schools. Because we have to compete with our neighbors, and our staff are consistently being asked to do more and more. And so this is at least a token of a start. Hopefully a better picture can come out of this.
We appreciate
So
that.
I accept, Carrie, and
Thank
board,
you.
I accept that.
Well, we
Thank you,
appreciate,
Ryan.
we appreciate everything our staff does, and we know that they deserve more. We just don't know that we can give it to them right now. So we're gonna work toward that. Thank you. Okay, and that was our final action item. So I am gonna move to reminders and announcements. Ryan, do we have any?
Just a big reminder on the lens, we don't have committee meetings this month. Those will pick up next month. Our next board meeting will be
21st.
is it 21st?
Mm-hmm.
There we go. July 21st. So that will be the board meeting. We'll have some discussion items on there, and hopefully I'll have some more information on what the state has done, as well as updated information from the leadership team.
Is that 6:30?
There'll be a 6:30 start time.
This one
yes.
here says 6 PM.
Actually, I was gonna say, could we start at 6?
Yeah.
Just knowing.
That's because
Yeah.
we talked about tacking a finance on.
That's right.
Yes.
And so if we tack a finance on, then 6 o'clock for sure. So we
Let's
can do
go
finance.
6 PM finance topics, and then go right into the board meeting from there.
And is Jamie here that night?
So what we were planning on doing, and I've been working with Jamie behind the scenes. So if you don't mind me facilitating these moving forward, I will plan on facilitating that moving forward.
Part of the agenda for that night will be focusing more specifically on these goals again.
These goals, yep. So we'll get to dig deeper into those goals and then set up our next steps.
Okay. That's at 6 o'clock on the 21st again.
Anything else?
And then we would resume in August with the first Wednesday for committees and the usual review.
Yeah, and so my wonder in August, and just to look at, do we try breaking it back into 2 separate nights? And I'll throw out this idea, you guys can process through it, and maybe we can make a decision in July. Is to go to the Wednesday, the first Wednesday, the second Wednesday, and then the third Monday.
And would it be broken down into curriculum policy?
5 PM starts, curriculum and policy being on the first.
Okay.
Finance, and I will say is I would appreciate having another week, because some of my finance reports are usually done the day of the meeting, and so if I can get another week, that just frees up my schedule a little bit
I
better.
prefer finance to be the second Wednesday.
Finance and B&G on the second one.
And then easier to get those public, or those documents on the board docs.
Can I get
for
it?
the
Yeah.
public.
Yep.
So if that's on the second Wednesday, then that gives you 2 days to get everything done for the board meeting the following Monday.
Which, with those two meetings being the way they are, that shouldn't be a problem.
By doing policy and curriculum first.
Yeah.
That's probably got the most work behind it that needs to be ready for the board meeting. Or with finance, the finances are prepared.
Right.
So there's not a whole lot more that needs to go into that.
I mean, that was the big reason we put that extra week in there.
Well, that
It
was the
hard to
reason by-
Be ready.
Okay.
I would tell you now, with the team we have in the business office, I think we've got this where we'll have it all right.
Okay.
The only other thing that I'd like to propose out there, and you guys can let me know if it would be, is for the admin team to be at the curriculum and policy meeting. That's often where their topics come up. Finance, B and G really does not, and the way our structures are with the board meetings, if I can give them that night off as well, they can tune in virtually if there's something we need to, but to have it be where they don't have to be here at 3 meetings, to
Yeah.
really focus on that one. And then the board meetings have really been action items. We haven't used them much.
And you have access to all the financial reporting, right? Because in the past, Lois used to come to our meetings, Sam, Amy used to come to our meetings. So if we had a specific question, they were here to answer it, but you have all the data accessible to you, correct?
Yep.
So we don't have a need for somebody else to attend for finance.
We intend for the board to be at both nights of the committee meetings.
Well, that's a personal decision because the board is the meetings are always posted with a quorum in mind. But unless you're on the committee, you don't have to attend. That was always the intent of, the committee updates at the full board. And then we all just started coming to everything. So that's a personal choice at that point. If you're not on co-curricular and policy and you don't want to attend that night, that's up to you.
Yeah, plus there's the Zoom option as well.
Based on that, with Tom's resignation,
Mhm.
we don't have a chairman for the B and G meeting. We don't have
Well, that-
members necessarily associated, since we have an appointed board member now, so we'll need to resolve that in the July meeting.
Yeah, we haven't really placed Mike on committees. I mean, we've gone on the assumption that he'll just fill where Tom was. And I think he's probably fine with that, but we can resolve that in July and make sure he's assigned, and then if he's gonna be B and G in finance, make him the.
Laura, were you here when we did the reassignments of, okay, so you were,
B and G and finance is what I was placed on.
okay.
And
I think
then,
this might be an opportunity for Robin to be B and G chairperson.
Is that what happens when you're not at the meeting?
Except she's not on those committees.
She's not on this. So to me, it's an opportunity either for Laura or for Mike, and it probably makes the most sense for Mike unless Laura wants to
Right.
dive in head first. It
Laura,
doesn't matter.
She's got enough to learn.
Well, she'll be here for sure for 3 years and like till April and then.
But yeah.
But when we did the other two,
I'm willing
Realign
to
it.
take on the.
We'll have to
payroll.
realign it next year anyway.
when we did the committee sorting,
Randall's finance.
Jessica was still the chairperson of policy, and was I still chairperson of curriculum?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yep.
I wasn't sure if we covered that.
Yeah, and so Tom was finance and Randall took on finance.
Okay,
And Randall, who was
No,
B
who
and
was
G?
B and G?
Was Tom both? Oh, you had taken on finance because of the treasurer role.
And you were.
And-
A and G
Tom was doing B and G.
chairman.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, so we need to fill B and G,
Yeah.
so.
Mhm. And moving forward, hopefully, with discussion with the leadership team, maybe the staff relations committee can start working on a regular time as well. I would like just to have that start off with those discussions, so the staff feels like they're involved with making decisions, be it non-financial duties and stuff like that, or just having those discussions. So, and then also, I'm hoping moving forward too with because I know the concern was brought up with not being present at a committee meeting and then taking time at the regular board meetings to recap. I'm hoping that we can utilize a shared Google Drive where we can take notes during the committee meetings that would be accessible to school board members and to admin, where just doing it through a Google Doc, people could make comments or raise questions in it and have some kind of record of what was discussed, so.
Yeah, in the minutes that I put out at the last two, I did write the summary of what each committee reported on at those board meetings, so that's in the minutes.
Yeah, I
now.
saw the minutes were, yeah, they had more detail on that in past.
Which is, it takes a lot of listening and writing
I
and
know.
re-listening to the
Very
meeting and.
difficult.
And which is great, I'm committed to keep doing it if it's useful to people.
Well, it'll be easier for you since theoretically the chairperson of each committee would be the one either during or right after writing those things down rather than you.
The
Yeah.
biggest thing that I would say I'm cautious, guidance I'd give for you guys is curriculum and finance go hand in hand. And sometimes when we want to make decisions about curriculum, we don't always fully think about finance. And vice versa, when we're thinking, hey, we gotta be as tight as we can with the dollars, we still need to educate kids. And so it really is the part that I've enjoyed most about, whether it be committee of the whole or be the boards at all of the meetings. We gotta make sure that the left hand's talking to the right so that we're making good decisions. And as long as we're taking good notes, reading those notes, I don't have any concerns, but it would be one of those making sure that we're making well-informed decisions.
And I think Chris Evans just set up a shared Google Drive for us, for a school board where we can start creating folders within it for each of the committee meetings and taking notes. Is that correct, Ryan? I think I saw.
That would be
invite-
really helpful, because then I could, when I'm referencing writing the minutes, go into those reports. or like
Yeah, no,
notes
so it
that are
doesn't have to be
taken.
so, yeah, that verbal and getting it all down and stuff like that, so.
Is there any issue with open meetings, open records? By
As long as it's
creating
just
our own
notes, it should
place?
be fine, we're not making comments on it.
Those are still open records.
They're still open.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't see any reason why, if someone requested them, that they wouldn't be accessible, would they? I mean.
I think in that you guys would just have to know, like, whatever comments you put in there, we have to know that in
Right.
that file, it is something that.
It's written for the public's
Yep,
use,
it's-
yeah.
yeah.
So I can't say, oh, I can't.
I would think
believe
whatever,
what
I would think whatever's in there needs to be part of the meeting notes.
Right, because if it's not made part of the record, if we're not each going in there and reading through it and saying, well, that's not how I interpreted that, or that's not exactly my words. How else does it become part of the public record so that it's?
Well, in my view, I'm not writing all of this, it's other people doing it on the committees they're on, like, I'm not gonna write it for B and G if I didn't go to that meeting, or even if I did,
What I'm saying is that as the head of the committee, I'd be putting things in this Google Doc.
Mhm.
Other people might come in with questions and then there's answers and it's all part of the Google Doc. I think all of that needs to be pulled out when we do the report out in the meeting minutes for the board meeting. All of that stuff needs to be put on there.
When you say
Not
pulled
just-
out, what do you mean? pulled
Um,
out?
copy and paste. it
Can't
into
be a
the-
live document, because then it's a walking forum, so we can't have that be a live document, it just needs to be a record. Because we can't risk a walking forum of Randall going in and adding comments, and that can't become a board discussion.
There could be more board, if at any time there were 4 board members as part of that discussion, then.
Okay.
Correct.
What-
That
we have a
can't
problem. So
happen.
this is something that we can figure out.
Yeah, figure out.
We don't
those
need to
others.
figure it out tonight, but we do need to be aware.
That's a
That's a good
walking
point.
forum if we
Laws
can't do that.
We have to be.
However,
careful.
I strongly believe we need to start taking minutes at the committee meetings
Yeah.
for a public record. I think that information needs to
The,
go.
the minutes can be taken and they can become part of the record at the board meeting, but that can't be a live document that we're interacting with.
So perhaps, like what Jessica does with the regular board meetings, could that be opened up to the chair of each of those committees to write down the notes as it goes through? Because isn't part of it to our approval of the minutes from the previous meeting? They do get approved later on.
That's only at the next full board meeting,
Mhm.
yeah. The only minutes we've ever taken are the full board meeting minutes, but those encompass what was discussed in committee, because the committee reported.
Yes, I think what we need is
Committee.
we need better committee notes
Yeah,
into the board
Yeah.
meeting notes where we have the committee report outs. We need better note and.
Because my recollection
Put
of
it-
the ordinance was, the building and grounds report was given by Tom McGraw. And that's all that was reported.
Yeah, right. No, so read the last one that just, well, we'll approve it this month. But that's the one I just wrote for the last board meeting and that's what I attempted to do. I'm not sure how great I did. I hope I did.
Yeah, no, I noticed there was more detail in it, so I appreciated that, Jess.
I think we need to add this as an agenda item to discuss at another time, because I think there's far more to it than just a document that we can all open in.
Yeah, I guess me and you on
Yeah.
the board, I have a lot of questions and I know now it's getting late, so I won't take those up. But Carrie, maybe you and I can sit down and you can kind of just help me kind of wade through some of my questions here.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I will put it as an agenda item in July so that we can have a discussion on it.
Mhm.
That'll also allow each of us to do some research on what can and can't we do,
Mhm.
so we're informed on the decision that we make.
Mhm.
Have you? Yeah, we'll talk about it. Okay,
Make a motion to adjourn.
thank you. And a second, please.
Second.
7:31. Second motion by Mike, second by Laura, to adjourn at 7:31 PM. And a roll call, ma'am.
All right, Schrader,
Yes.
Lazar, yes, Humke absent.
Yes.
Naylor, Engel absent, Thompson,
Yes,
Wilson.
Yes.
we needed a roll call for adjournment.
Well, it's on the minute, it's on my notes, and if it's on my notes, I'm doing it.
Right.
So, yeah. And we need, Ryan, we need to add this
Waiting around.
angle just to the roll call, just to the, present piece.
Okay.
Because we can acknowledge that he's here, he just can't vote.
Yep.
We're gonna have two angles on
We're
there.
gonna have double angle, it's gonna be so confusing.
So everybody knows I'll be out of the country from the 9th to the 20th.
Where are you going?
Greece.
Like on my bucket list.
It was on mine.
Where are you going in Greece?
We're actually taking a small boat cruise
Oh,
to some of the islands that the tourists don't normally go to.
yep,
So some of the smaller cities and.
nice,
We'll spend a couple of days in Athens just to,
to take in the history.
yeah.
Mhm.
That's the-
I was gonna chase you down for that.
Yep, it'll be great.
And board, thank you for being tolerant of all my questions.
Yeah. it's a lot.
Honestly, I think one of the best things, if you haven't done it yet, Laura, is to do the new board program through CISA, because I do think it gives you a little bit of a background on what our role is. I think it's a great place to start, actually.
What I took away from that was a long time ago, but it was whatever you want on the front page of the Wisconsin State Journal, that's all you should put in writing. I was like, oh my God, okay. But I didn't get a lot, I personally didn't get a lot else out of it, it's more like legally.
There's a lot of legal.
Yeah.
pieces.
Yeah.
Well, and I did watch like Bosby when they had the new member ones, I sat in on that
Yeah.
too, and had some notes and some stuff with that, but the other thing too, just